Friends, a quick announcement before we begin the service. For those of you with a cell phone, please place it on silent or vibrate. Thank you.
Shiviti Adonai lenegdi tamid, ki mimini balamot lachein samach libi v'yagel kavodi af basari yishkon levetach. I have set the eternal always before me. God is at my side, I shall not be moved. Therefore does my heart exult and my soul rejoice, my being is secure. For you will not abandon me to death, nor let your faithful one see destruction. You show me the path of life. Your presence brings fullness of joy. Enduring happiness is your gift.
Adonai roi lo exor bino desher yabitzeni ame menuchot yanaleni nafshi Yancheini b'magalet tzedek, Yancheini b'magalet tzedek, l'ma'an shemo. Gam gilik begit samavet, lo
And if you'd like to join with me in reciting the words of the 23rd Psalm, feel free to do so. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Today, we are here to remember and honor a man who lived a fascinating life. He was a loyal son and brother, loving husband, devoted father, grandfather, and great-grandfather, and a friend to many. Robert Strauss, who I understand had a very determined personality, but in the video that I had a chance to view of him on YouTube, he seemed to face all the challenges of life with a calm grace and a matter-of-fact attitude. Well, that's the way it is. Seemed to come through. He lived in a way to inspire those blessed to have known him. Robert was born in Milwaukee 84 years ago. The son of Edgar and Helene, he was preceded in death by his brothers Ronald and Jeffrey. Robert described being raised by strict parents, but that he and his brothers had a good life as kids. He was especially close to Ronald, not only his brother, but also his best friend. While Jeffrey was a bit younger, it was Robert and Ronald who found ways to get into trouble together as kids. The family moved from Wauwatosa to Fox Point, where he attended Nicolet High School, and then became one of the early families moving to Mequon. Robert graduated from the University of Wisconsin-Madison before entering the family business. He worked as a cattle dealer for the livestock brokerage at the Milwaukee Stockyards. During those years, he worked outside with cattle and farmers 365 days a year. When he decided to sell the business, he made a major career change, becoming a fifth-grade teacher at Wilson Elementary School. The students were blessed to have him teach them literature, and he was fortunate to have Marty Gutnick as a mentor in his teaching career. Bob's first marriage to Nancy led to the gift of 2 children, David and Jennifer. You both will share some personal words in a few moments. You gave him the gift of grandchildren, Rachel, married to Davy, Eliana, Alex, Isabel, and Ava, as well as great-grandchildren Ella, Kobe, and Atara. Robert was a wonderful dad to you and embraced your partners, Lisa and Ryan. Bob was also blessed to share 39 years of loving companionship with you, Susan. When you got married 32 years ago, you gave him the gift of 3 more grandchildren, Ellie, Reese, and Alec. When he was young, Bob played football at Nicolet High School. He loved baseball, even coached tennis, played tennis, was passionate about golf, and was a jogger. He also played bridge, poker, blackjack, and Sudoku, and he loved reading. He had many groups of friends from the different parts of his life. His stockyard friends, his golf friends, his poker buddies, his North Shore Jewish friends, and his Tucson group. He also became a great friend to all of his brothers-in-law, and Sue, you shared that he spoke daily with your brother Bruce. Sports was a part of the talks he had with all of these groups of friends. Always hopeful about the Packers, I guess, is what I heard. Robert was progressive, especially during his college days. He later served on the Nicolet School Board, concerned with the quality of his children's education. He dedicated a lot of his life educating younger people and has left a legacy for his family of how to live one's life. And now we will hear from family and a friend about the gift of knowing Robert. We'll start with his wife, Susan.
Well, I want to thank the rabbi for all of his kind words and his description of Bob's life, and I thank you all for being here today. It really touches me to see all the people that have been a part of our life together, and then before me. He had a life. Anyway, so I thought that maybe I would tell you how this all happened. So what happened is that I was divorced, and a friend of mine called me and said, it was on Yom Kippur. She said, I know that there are 2 guys getting divorced. She said, one is short, and older and rich. And the other one is taller, younger, and poor. Which one do you want? I said, I'll take the tall, poor guy. I said, listen, person can lose all their money in 5 seconds, and tall is good, and, younger, you want to spend time with the person. So I said, well, we decided on the secret fix-up. And the secret fix-up was at Yom Kippur that my friend would ask Bob, everybody belonged to Shalom, to come and break the fast. And so I said to her, you have to have your husband ask as well. So, because I knew that one, you'd go, but if 2 asked him, he would be there. So that happened, and so we're sitting around the table after breaking the fast, and Bob is telling us about, he's just recently divorced, and he's had some dates, and one of his dates, he said, he was talking to her, and he said to her, well, what do you do? And she said, well, I read books, I go to concerts, I go to plays. He said, but what do you do? And everything was really quite passive. And meanwhile, we were with our friends, the Dallets, and a friend of my, and very good friends, and have been friends forever after that. And unfortunately, Debbie has just passed away recently, so our group is really shrinking fast. And they were talking about this great trip that they took down the, now I can't think of the name, the river they went on. And I said, oh my God, it sounds so exciting. Oh, it was the Snake River. I said, it sounds so exciting, count me in. And that was it, count me in. He knew that whatever he was going to do, I was going to be right there. And if he wasn't doing it, that I was going to find something to do. And the other thing that happened was that, so we went on our first date, and of course the ending was, we looked at each other, we didn't know if we should kiss or what, we shook hands. And I thought, oh my God, I'm never going to see him again. But it worked out. And then shortly thereafter, I went to see an astrologist, and the astrologist looks at my chart and says, I have some really bad news for you. There is nobody that will fit with your chart. He said, I've never seen anything like this. And I went, well, I think I did find somebody. And so I gave him the date, and he looks it up, he goes, the only person in the world who can put up with you is the guy, is this person. So this was a match made in heaven, and yeah, it was, Bob was not an easy guy. He's a Strauss. Well, the men might be the most stubborn, or some people say determined, person in the whole world. So, but anybody that's married to a Strauss figures out a way to deal with it in one way or another. And so I still can't believe that it's true. When I'm home, I always think he's in the other room, or he's calling me from the couch to come and sit with him, because he wants me near him all the time. So now he'll have to, now he'll have to be just up there, and he'll always be with me. And thank you.
I'm going to stay here for Jennifer.
Okay.
Jennifer, you can come up and speak. Bob's daughter.
Today we gather to celebrate the life of a wonderful man, my dad. While my heart is broken by his passing, I know how incredibly blessed I was to have him as my father. When I think of my dad, the first words that come to mind are loving, kind, and selfless. He had the biggest heart. He didn't just care about his family, he cared about everyone. If someone needed help, he was there. If someone needed encouragement, he always found the right words. To me, he was so much more than my father. He was my protector, my teacher, and my biggest supporter. No matter what life brought my way, I always knew I could count on him. He was the person I could call with good news, bad news, or no reason at all. Somehow he always knew exactly what to say to make things feel a little better. The hardest part about losing someone like my dad is knowing there will never be another person quite like him. His absence leaves an emptiness that words can't describe. But even though he's no longer beside us, I know his love never leaves. It lives on in the memories we share, the lessons he taught us, and in every act of kindness we choose because of the example he set. Dad, thank you for everything. Thank you for your endless love, your guidance, your strength, and your unwavering belief in me. Thank you for always being there. I hope you know how deeply you were loved and how much you meant to all of us. I will miss hearing your voice, seeing your smile, and feeling the comfort of knowing you were always just a phone call away. I will carry your love with me every day for the rest of my life. You may be gone from our sight, but you will never be gone from our hearts. You were and always will be one of the greatest blessings of my life. I love you, Dad, and thank you for being the amazing father you were.
And now I invite Bob's son David to say some words.
This is a day that I've dreaded for a long time. And it's hard to put into words all that he's meant to people, including me. But I've tried. And some of what I'm going to say you've just heard. But I think just having it reinforced will tell you that these themes are so true. My dad would not have wanted this attention. He was not that kind of guy. But it's the price one pays for having touched so many so profoundly. I asked my dad to be the best man at my wedding. Yes, I admit it was partly to avoid having to choose among several equally close groomsmen. But in reality, he was my best man. From the day I was born to the day he died. Jennifer and I have always felt like we were the most important things in the world to my dad. We didn't just believe it, we knew it, we felt it, always. He spent his whole life making sure that even when it cost him, he made quiet, yet huge sacrifices for us. Not the kind he ever talked about, the kind he only appreciated years later. When my dad got married, he was still an idealistic young man contemplating career choices. However, with a family to support, he decided to take over my grandfather's cattle business at the Milwaukee Stockyards. This was not his dream. He had dreams of changing the world. but it was a ready career that provided for his family. So that's what he did for 30 years. He worked outside 365 days a year, braving the Wisconsin cold for like 360 of those 365 days. And he worked in cow manure. You only had to come to our Fox Point home to know that my dad was not an accountant or a doctor. His car smelled like cow manure. Our garage smelled like cow manure. His clothes after work smelled like cow manure. I somehow grew up thinking that was normal. It was not normal. Some of my earliest memories are of waking up before dawn and driving out to farms, visiting his best customers and their families. It was a world very different than ours. Even if those trips weren't intended as lessons, they were. My dad was basically a blue-collar guy, a meat and potatoes guy, who constantly taught me and my sister about hard and honest work. My dad was naturally super handy and did most home projects himself, including single-handedly remodeling our basement. He used to go down to his basement workroom seemingly every night to check on things. I was a reasonably smart kid, but I didn't piece together until I was like 40 that it was his weed smoking, not some mysterious never-ending project that he was working on. Besides his career, my father sacrificed in another major way. He stayed married to my mom long after he knew that was over. Leaving would have meant not being present in his kids' lives every day, so my dad waited. He moved out within a couple weeks after Jennifer left for college. After decades in a job and in a marriage he endured in large part for his children, the world opened up to him. He met and fell in love with Sue. He told me he knew it was love when, after she was asked about an adventure he was up for, she said, "I'm in," or words to that effect. Count me in. How liberating that must have been for him. When I was considering law school, he was considering leaving the dying cattle business to become a teacher, and he asked me what I thought he should do. I asked him what he thought I should do, and we talked it through, and we both went back to school that same year. He got his teaching certificate during his final years in the stockyards, and then he left to become a fifth-grade teacher at Wilson Elementary in Wauwatosa. Not many people completely reinvent themselves like that. He traded cattle for kids, and yes, he said the cattle were easier and sometimes less smelly. My dad was no ordinary teacher. He had life experiences and a pent-up reservoir of ideas ready to share with the world, and share he did for 15 years. My dad was the teacher that students always came back to visit. They also regularly stopped him on the street, always letting him know how much he meant to them. My dad absolutely loved this. He wove countless lessons into his teaching, just as he did with Jennifer and me every day of our childhood. And he didn't stop with us. Our friends were also beneficiaries, as he was often holding court and counseling all comers. Lest he be too glorified, as you may have already heard, my dad wasn't perfect. He was a Strauss, as Sue has said. Strong-willed, pig-headed even. Thankfully, that skips a generation because I can't imagine being like that. My dad was also sometimes a walking contradiction, simultaneously a true believer in equity and human rights, having marched for civil rights and against the war early in Madison, yet also the man who, when frustrated by my lack of progress in learning how to hold my breath underwater or how to swallow a pill, would lock me in the bathroom for hours on end until I could demonstrate success. In reality, it was probably just an hour, but it felt like weeks. And years later, he'd come to lock both me and his then-girlfriend, Sue, together at a table at Benji's Deli. During that fateful breakfast, he stood up, and before he left, he demanded that the two of us remain at the table until we could find a path to peace in our early rocky relationship. A Colburn and a Strauss, and 2 lawyers to boot. That, I might add, also only took about an hour. Even with his tough love, my dad was always my biggest champion. He beamed with pride at my accomplishments, though he didn't hesitate to knock me down if I felt I was getting too big for my britches. And in my failures, there was no judgment. He seemed to know I would suffer enough from my own shame. One last story. I was busted for underage driving when I was 15. I was only the passenger, mind you, and I defiantly and repeatedly let the very irritated cops know that I was only the passenger. Nonetheless, I was humiliated to face my family. My dad collected me from the police station, apologized to the police for my attitude, and was then silent on the ride home. I had to walk past my grandparents and my mom on the way up to my bedroom. Only then did I lose all my bravado and burst into convulsive and uncontrollable sobbing. My mom eventually came up and she said, "You've embarrassed yourself and the family." That didn't help. Minutes later, my dad came up and opened the door, and I held my breath. "You know," he said, you know what your biggest mistake was tonight?" He was surprisingly soft in his tone. "What?" I whimpered. "You were dumb enough to get caught. When I took my parents' car out when I was underage, I never got caught." He laughed and he slowly shut my door. It was the only thing in the world I could have heard to make me feel better. And he knew it. He always knew. It was wrong what I said earlier in this eulogy. I said my dad was my best man until the day he died. The reality is that he will be my best man until the day I die.
At this time, grandchildren Alex and Eliana will say a few words.
Hello, everyone. If you do not know me, I'm Alex Durfler, one of Gramps' 5 grandchildren. My sister Rachel and I are children of his daughter, Jennifer, and Eliana, Isabel, and Ava are children of his son, David. I'm not up here to brag or anything, but he did tell me multiple times that I was his favorite grandson. Gramps wasn't just the most caring and loving grandpa I could have asked for. He was also the most thoughtful father, husband, friend, uncle, and person all of us could have ever asked for. He has been one of the biggest role models in my life, and he will continue to be for the rest of it. His generosity, wisdom, reliability, and yes, even his stubbornness or determination are something that I will carry for the rest of my life. One thing we all know about Gramps was his love for the game of golf. For better or worse, he was the first person who put a golf club in my hands. He bought me my first set of clubs, took me golfing for the first time, and taught me everything I knew about the game. I will never be able to stand over a golf ball without imagining his face behind my club because he tells me to try to hit his face, so I'd bring the club back straight. He was the only person I've ever met who could be impressed by a drive that sliced 150 yards right to the other fairway, just because it went a long way. Looking around today, it's incredible to see how many people came to celebrate his life. It's a testament to the kind of man he was and how many lives he touched. Gramps, if you're listening, I want you to know that we'll be okay. I promise to take care of your girls. I know no one could ever take your place, but I hope you can rest easy knowing that your family will always look after one another. Thank you for everything you've done for me. I hope I can continue to make you proud. Thank you all so much for being here and for honoring him with your presence. I love you, Gramps, and I'll miss you every day.
Hi, I am Eliana. I'm David's firstborn daughter. I feel incredibly grateful to have had my Gramps in my life for so many wonderful years. As we both grew older and he moved away from the Midwest, our visits became less frequent, but every moment that we shared together remained the same at its core. Whether we were reminiscing, telling stories, or simply catching up, our time together was always filled with and rooted in laughter, wisdom, curiosity, and of course, our shared love for the Wisconsin Badgers. One of my earliest and favorite memories of Gramps was getting to spend a day with him in his 5th grade classroom. I was only in 3rd grade, and I felt like the luckiest kid in the world that I got to play hooky from my own school, cross state lines, and spend the day with the legendary Mr. Strauss. I sat behind his desk, was paraded around the teacher's lounge, and watched him in complete awe as during indoor recess, all of his students lined up one by one to challenge him to a game of chess. I don't even remember what they were playing for, but I do remember the way that they looked at him. They admired him and they respected him. Even at that age, I could see the incredible impact that he had on the people around him, and I remember knowing how proud I was to be Mr. Strauss's granddaughter. As I got older, one of the greatest gifts was realizing how much Gramps and I had in common. As I mentioned, we're both proud Wisconsin Badgers, and throughout my childhood, his love for Madison became a part of our family story. He made me a Badger fan long before I ever even applied, and this really allowed me to feel a sense of home when I got to school. It felt so meaningful to me to know that during my first experience away from home, I had the comfort of knowing that I was walking the same campus, studying in the same buildings, and making memories in the very place that he had done the same decades earlier, not to mention drinking in the same bars, which we were always able to reminisce about. Being able to compare our college experiences always made me feel connected to him in such a special way that I will never forget. During my last visit with Gramps, I also somehow learned something that I had never known about him. He spent a summer living in New York City with his brother Ron. Since New York has become such an important part of my own life after the last few years, we once again found ourselves comparing stories during my last visit and realizing that even across generations, our lives have crossed paths in so many unexpected ways. Looking back, I realized that those conversations were far more than just my grandfather wanting to catch up with me and hear about my life. They were another way for us to connect and to share these experiences across generations and appreciate how much we had in common. I think that's what I'll cherish the most about my Gramps. Throughout my life, and especially over the past few weeks, I've continued to learn more about who he was, the life he built, and the countless people that he impacted along the way. Every story I've heard has made me feel even closer to him and even more proud to be his granddaughter. It has been such a gift to realize that even though he's no longer with us, I'm still getting to know him and finding aspects of him in myself in my own life. Gramps, my sisters, my cousins, and I miss you more than you know, and we always will. More than anything, I feel incredibly lucky to have had you as my Gramps, and I will forever cherish the time that we shared, the stories we told, and the memories we made. I hope to carry your sense of curiosity, your kindness, and your love with me every day, and I promise to live my life in a way that makes you proud and honors your legacy. I love you.
And now I invite Bob's good friend Jim Dallett to say a few words.
I'm going to make this short because you already know who Bob is. Although I'm not family, Debbie and I were always like family, from the beginning to the end. So many years, so many great times, so many great memories. This has been said, a cattle cowboy who went back to school to teach children and mentor. That's Bob. What a guy. That speaks to who he is. We met shortly after we moved to Milwaukee in 1972, and we became best friends through the rest of our life. We shared many family events from then on with Nancy and Bob, Sue and Bob, and carried on our friendship when Bob and Sue moved to Phoenix or to Tucson, where they loved. We shared throughout the good years, the bad years, countless times together until the kids grew up and became empty nesters. We always saved a few nights a year for boys' night out. And we had Bob was a great boys' night outer. Yeah. We had lots of fun. I don't know if they had Ubers in those days, but it was probably a good thing if they did, but we were always careful. And so many laughs. I will always have a hole in my heart, but I have so many great memories, so many great. I'm very lucky to have had a friend like Bob. Anybody would be. And rest in peace, my dear friend. I love you, and I will miss you.
It has been said that happiness is not so much in having as sharing. We make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. Bob Strauss made a great life, giving of himself to his family and friends, leaving behind wonderful memories and life lessons for all of us. Zichrono livracha, may the good name of Robert Emil Strauss always be a blessing and an inspiration. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is a journey, a going, a growing from stage to stage, from childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength or strength to weakness and often back again, from health to sickness and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage made stage by stage, from birth to death to life everlasting. Dear God, you give us loved ones and make them the strength of our life, the light of our eyes. They depart and leave us bereft on a lonely way, but you are the living fountain from which our healing flows. To you the stricken look for comfort and the sorrow-laden for consolation. O God, we see life as through windows that open on eternity. We see that love endures and the soul endures as you, O God, endure forever. We see that the years are more than grass that withers, more than flowers that fade. They weave a timeless pattern in a world that is the dwelling place of your love and your glory. And I ask all who can comfortably do so at this time to please rise.
El male rachamim, shocheim bamramim, hamsei menucha nechona tocha kanfei, hashechinah, b'ma'alot kedoshim u'dehorim, k'zohar harakiyom mashirim, et nishmat Reuven Eliezer ben Ergavelana, shehalach le'olam,
Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Robert Emil Strauss, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in your eternal presence, and let his soul be bound up in the bonds of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace, and let us say, Amen.
Friends, services will continue at Spring Hill Cemetery, 166 South Holly Court here in Milwaukee. For those of you joining us at the cemetery, please note the Holly Road exit is closed. Recommend doing reroute via GPS, and that will take you to the cemetery. Following burial, everyone is cordially invited back here to Congregation Shalom, starting at 2 p.m. until 5. Family will receive friends here, as well as Thursday, August 6th, 4 to 8 p.m. at 9935 North Thornapple Lane in Mequon. We have maps to the cemetery with rerouted directions, as well as notes for Shiva on a stand outside the sanctuary. It's also available on BlaineGoodmanFunerals.com. At this time, if you can comfortably do so, there is a bus. There is a bus. Capacity for 26. So, at this time, ask that you remain standing if you can comfortably do so as the casket leaves the sanctuary. Pallbearers, please come forward.